Commander unbans incoming. Maybe.
Or they're just going to say, all good.
No changes. No changes. It doesn't seem likely. Ban/unban announcement is coming up February 9th.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little recap of the ban list. We're going to talk about the cards that we think probably can just come off the ban list and would be fine. And then we're going to talk about the cards that are potentially unbans if you want to get spicy.
Distraction makers.
Let's get to the cards that we think could probably be safely unbanned and wouldn't really change much of anything.
First card on the list is Biorhythm. As a reminder, Biorhythm is a sorcery, 6 and 2 green. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures he or she controls. Whoa! You're saying everyone's life total is going to just drop really low?
Holy cow.
Maybe 0.
Only for the inexpensive price of 8 mana.
Yep. So Wizards here said it can go in any green deck, requires very little setup to cast, and really disproportionately impacts the player to your right. Compared to Coalition Victory, which only goes in 5-color decks and requires you to control 5 colors worth of permanents, it is a bit much. I mean, I guess it can go in any green deck.
This is sort of the, I think, Wizards of the Coast team basically honoring some of what the previous rules committee did in saying, like, yeah, look, sure, this card could be a problem. Honestly, I think at 8 mana, you probably should be pushing towards ending the game anyway. So, and this also doesn't end the game. It just puts, I mean, it could, I guess,
it gets everyone
if you had no creatures.
Right, yeah.
But
technically, someone could board wipe on their turn or something to reset it, and then you could cast that.
This, to me, is in the similar category as Coalition Victory, which came off the ban list last time. They made it a game changer. Has not done much of anything. I think it would be totally fine. And this would probably end up in a very similar situation.
Next on the list, we have Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. Is a legendary artifact creature. It costs 5 mana. It says, when Golos, Tireless Pilgrim enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. He also has an ability for 2 colorless and Wooburg that says, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying their mana costs. And he's a 3/5, so yeah.
This one I think we might end up getting a little bit of flack for because I think commander players generally have a sense that Golos was like oversaturating the format. I'm not sure if that's exactly Wizards' ban philosophy here, but that generally was the vibe, I think.
Wizards said, Golos is an incredibly powerful 5-color option that both finds any land, ensuring that even if dead, you likely had enough mana to recast it next turn, and has an activated ability that can be an extremely strong spout for all that mana. It really homogenized games and was a de facto best commander option for many, many decks.
So they're basically already kind of alluded to the fact that this might be an acceptable card in higher brackets, which means that maybe it's a game changer rather than it being banned. This feels like a card that lower brackets might find powerful, but when you start moving into cards that are like actually powerful, it's kind of just fine.
I think that's what's weird and divisive about the ban list is because so much of it is from the sort of older committee's philosophy.
It's also before they had brackets and game changers as a framework to work with, right? So
you're just seeing like so many cards that it's like, yeah, okay, at I guess your casual average table of people that are playing like precons or their sort of janky decks or whatever, yeah, someone might play a Golos and you might be like, whoa, that guy's really good. But then, yeah, if you'd play like anything higher bracket, it's just kind of, it's like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, it could come back out and be back into the EDH rec top 10 or whatever, and then people would be like, well, see, we knew that it was going to do this again, and everybody's defaulting to it. But, like, I don't know, in some ways, I think some players argued that, like, yeah, it's nice to have a commander that you can default to if you're trying to build a deck that just doesn't have a default, like, doesn't have a commander, right? There's no commander that supports what you're doing, so you kind of default to Golos. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is a little tough if it's like setting the floor, you know, like this is the floor of like, if there is no commander, you're going to play this one. I think generally this is probably fine to come off the list and be a game changer, if that. Yeah.
I mean, I just think a big part of this format is I feel like just letting your like local community self-police, right? So like, if someone says they're going to play their Golos, you just say no. Like, right. I don't know. Like that's,
or it's like, I'm going to play my Golos deck. My bracket 1 Golos, my bracket 2 Golos, my bracket 3 Golos, my bracket 4, you know, like that. It's, I don't know. Are people doing that? I don't think so.
Next on the list, we have Leovold, Emissary of Tress, Sultai commander that says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. And it's a 3/3.
So this feels like it was banned in a world before Nadu.
Sure.
You know?
It was.
Yeah.
So.
Now look, Nadu's also banned, but like this is not Nadu, right? Like I feel like maybe there's some weirdness with like limiting how many cards other players can draw, but like the format probably needs that.
There's worse pieces to prevent your opponents from doing certain things,
like
right?
You always get access to it. It's in the command zone, but like let's tone down the card draw maybe.
Yeah.
All right. What's their stated reason for having this ban?
Wizard says, stopping your opponents from drawing extra cards is very powerful in Commander. Coupled with the fact you can play it as your commander and get value if people try and target you makes Leovold unlikely to return. I think what's interesting about hearing this is I'll read the sentence of what they're saying, and then they follow it up with, and that's why it's not coming back. But like, I don't see what they're saying as being that big of an issue.
Yeah.
Generally, I've played games with Leovold as the commander, at the table, and like, it's not a problem.
Nobody really. Yeah. I think generally speaking, they kind of lean towards like removing some of these kind of negative play patterns, right? Things that sort of limit the ability for people to do things, but there's still plenty of them exist in the format. Yeah. Also, again, this was banned before they had game changers. I think this easily is a game changer, and then that's it. There is a little bit of weirdness with having commanders as game changers, which we talked about before, which is that like selecting if your commander is a game changer. Oh, you know what? There's also another piece of logic that makes this easier. Wizards themselves has come out and said that like the commander is the known entity, right? It's the known thing that you know about what your opponent is going to play.
Right.
So you can opt out.
Right.
The commander is the easiest thing to opt out of.
It's why it's difficult to hear the argument of saying like, well, this thing is in the command zone, so it's hard to work around because it's like, well, you tell someone I'm playing my Leovold deck, well, someone knows.
I don't want to play against it.
Right.
Yeah, that just by that logic, I think it can come off the ban list. But yeah, like you can move it onto the game changers list. Also, the thing that's weird about commanders being on the game changers list is that if you choose a commander as your game changer, you always have access to it. So it sort of makes commanders as game changers a little weird, but whatever. All right. What's the next one?
Next on the list, we have Rofellos, Llanowar Emissary. Rofellos is a legendary creature, 2 green for a 2/1, and he has a tap ability that says add 1 green mana to your mana pool for each forest you control.
Guy seems fine. He seems good. You know, he's a good mana dork. You can have him in the command zone. He makes mana. That's one of the 3 things that we talk about commanders being able to do. They either make mana, they are a card advantage, or they win you the game.
He's good. He's good at making mana,
but he's
mono green.
Mono green,
right?
You know, like he doesn't give you access to a wide variety of things. He's not abusable in the command zone, like something like Lumra. What's that other one I was talking about? She's also good. Savala. Seems fine. What's their rationale for having a ban?
Wizard says the mana provided by Rofellos out of the command zone is massive. Maybe this is something you could only be in your deck and not as a commander, but it's much stronger when your deck is built around it. Yes, technically it is stronger when your deck is built around it because you can have things that end up generating more forest, turns all your creatures into forest, and then you generate a lot of mana with that. But like, you generate a lot of mana, what do you then do with it? Right.
Yeah.
And when you're in mono green, right, you're already limited, I think, somewhat on card draw. Like, you're limited on what you can do. So I think those limitations already being set in place by having this in the command zone, like, is fine. And once again, their logic is out the window when, like, that's the thing that allows people to self-select out of games, right? Someone ends up playing a Rofellos, and someone's like, well, okay, that's way too strong. I'm not going to play.
Yeah. Too much mana.
Right. Even though we talked about before starting this that Kinnan is still legal and
not even a game changer.
Not even a game changer. Not non-game changer Kinnan.
Non-game changer Kinnan.
Next on the list we have Sundering Titan. Sundering Titan is an artifact creature, an 8 cost, 7/10 that says when Sundering Titan enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands.
Yeah, this one just falls under the land destruction category where you're not allowed to play land destruction in the lower brackets anyway. So
I mean, except for all the other land destruction spells that are still viable and
well, no,
and
I just mean it's on the it's you know in the sort of explicit rules of like
sure,
no
so there's no point in
destruction.
having it banned because
right.
it's already
taken care of.
Right.
But what's the rationale?
Wizard says this card is miserable at low power tables as it
It's good wording.
Yeah, as it blows up tons of your opponent's lands and tends to get blinked, reanimated, or otherwise triggered time and time again.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say at low power tables, but they're blinking, reanimating, and triggering it multiple times. I'm like, I feel like that then is not low powered.
Well, it's also, again, land destruction isn't It's explicitly stated you're not supposed to be doing land
So
destruction
you shouldn't be
anyway.
doing that anyways.
It doesn't matter. The logic is inconsistent, and I think it's because it was written before the bracket system.
It's a fairly unfun experience. It's possible that as brackets continue to increase in adoption, maybe this would be it italicized. This would be an acceptable game changer, though even then, upgraded decks don't want mass land denial around. Even if someone wants to go ahead and bring this out and they want to flicker it and have everyone's lands blow up or whatever and essentially reset the table, like, one, everyone's probably just going to scoop at that point.
Probably.
And
or they'll keep playing out of spite.
Sure, they might keep spite playing. But even then, it's like that has to be, like you said, like what, bracket 3 and up before you can have land destruction?
I mean, even 3, I think, might even.
So brackets 4 and 5?
4 and 5,
right.
Yeah.
So,
which, like, nobody in CEDH is playing this.
Right.
Like, let me ramp all the way to 8 mana and then blow up some lands.
Totally fine. Next is Sylvan Primordial. Sylvan Primordial is a avatar creature, a 6/8 that costs 5 and 2 green. It has reach. That's not the important part. When Sylvan Primordial enters...
Too good.
Yeah, already too good. A 6/8 with reach? When Sylvan Primordial enters the battlefield, for each opponent, destroy target non-creature permanent that player controls. For each permanent destroyed this way, search your library for a forest card and put that card onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. I laughed out loud when I saw this was banned.
I mean, look, it seems good at casual tables. Like, you're blowing up a bunch of shit and you're getting some value. There's
so many cards that are good at casual tables.
I know. Look, I
don't know what...
this seems fine to me, too. This also falls in line with our sort of guns versus butter argument in that, like, it's pretty difficult to get people over the hurdle of playing removal because it doesn't technically, like, advance your game plan, where this one does.
This one does.
Which would be great. Like, just unban this.
We need more cards like this.
Yeah.
Turgid's not banned.
It's true.
Speaking of, Wizard says for Sylvan Primordial, speaking of blinking and land destruction, Sylvan Primordial puts you ahead while setting everybody else back and is a prime candidate to clone, blink, and flicker.
That's what we want.
It is not the most fun card, especially at more casual tables. I could go onto EDH Rec right now, and I guarantee you I could find so many less fun cards that I've seen in games than this card.
It feels like a holdover. I think, whatever. This one seems fine. So let's move into these are a little spicy. These are kind of on the borderline for us as to whether or not they should be unbanned or not, but we might have some arguments as to why they should be unbanned.
Yes. So first on our list, we have Balance. Balance is a sorcery, 1 and a white. Says each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way.
Look, part of the reason why I think this maybe should come off the ban list is because CEDH might want this card. Stacks is particularly bad in CEDH. They have a lack of tools. They're not going to ban or unban anything for CEDH, but the only reason why I would even start advocating for this card is that you could sort of reinvigorate some stacks type strategies because of balance.
I feel like most of these cards I'm going to be like, sure.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Well, and again, we tend to have this philosophy of like, let's build a system that lets the players build the experience that they want. I think under the framework, though, it's like, why have a ban list at all? Other than like cards that just break the game.
Right.
It's almost like you almost need like 2 tiers of game changer, which is sort of what the ban list is, because it's like, well, game changers are like, you don't have to like opt in to that experience. It's like, that's just on the game changer list. In the ban list, you would have to opt into that experience.
I think I'm leaning a little bit more towards ban list or maybe a game changer list, like basically what they currently have, but lean a little bit more towards if things are going to be banned, it's mostly for gameplay purposes. It's for like a functional competitive level or something. Yeah. Next on the list, we have Dockside Extortionist. Dockside Extortionist is 1 in red. It's a 1/2 goblin pirate creature.
We know what it does.
Okay. Well, it comes into play. It enters the battlefield. Create X treasure tokens, where X is number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control.
Look, this is just because you want to make tokens and sell prints. We know. It's all right. That's why we put it here.
I made a lot of money off this card. So.
Could this be unbanned? It could be. Is it better for the format if it's unbanned?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It used to be that games, especially CEDH, would revolve around Dockside. But now they sort of revolve around Rhystic Study or Atali, just like Turbo, whatever. The one thing I will say, we've talked about this before, that in like a battle cruiser style game, the person that you need to think about more is not the person who gets out further ahead. It's the person who is falling behind, and Dockside would help you catch back up if you had fallen behind. I would be really curious to see data on the seat win position problem when Dockside was in the format. I do wonder if Dockside was helping with some of those problems. I don't know. That's just speculation.
It does mean that the person that is already ahead could play it. That's a total possibility. But
sure.
like it's, yeah, I don't know. I think we've described it as like the Smash Bros. Hammer, and I think that it's good to try and have more of those. I could see it coming back, but I'd also understand if it stays banned. Next on the list, we have Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. Emrakul is a 15 cost legendary creature, Eldrazi, that has 15 power and toughness. Emrakul says this spell can't be countered. When you cast a spell, take an extra turn after this one. It has flying, protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, and Annihilator 6. And then if it were to be put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library.
I think people generally like Emrakul. At the time, I think their rationale for why they banned this was that this just was the thing that was like closing out a lot of games. And now it's like, well, you got rid of the thing that's at the top of that. You know, it's colorless. It can be played in a lot of decks, but like you got rid of that thing that was closing out the games, and now Craterhoof just closes out a lot of games,
yeah.
right? So
it's big scary thing that does big scary thing, and I feel like it's weird to justify it by saying like, well, this thing does too big scary of a thing, and it's like, well, you're paying the mana cost for
it's 15.
that.
Yeah, you can use something like Sneak Attack or whatever to put it into like Show and Tell.
You can do that with anything else that's also big and scary,
right? Yeah. Now this one in particular. All right. Well, if you didn't cast it, you don't get the extra turn, but you do still get the attack from like the Annihilator 6 with something like Sneak Attack or whatever.
But you can't attack with it on the first turn if you end up
Sneak Attack.
Does it give it haste?
Yeah.
Well,
you put it into play, it attacks, and then you sacrifice
mind.
it. Yeah. But again, you'd have to have the Sneak Attack. You'd have to have Emrakul. I don't know. Look, I just want this for semi-blue. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, it'd be good. At the very least, like I don't see why it can't just be a game changer. Like, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Next, we have Griselbrand.
Oh, Grizzle Daddy. Look. Reanimator's not great in Commander, guys. Uh-huh. It's not really a great strategy. It's pretty easy for you to like put a big dumb creature in play and somebody bounce back to your hand. Give us something. Give us something good. Look, we got Atraxa, I realize, but Atraxa doesn't go. You know, the colors, man. It's hard to play. It's hard to put in your deck. If you give us back Griselbrand, we'll be real happy. All right, what's Griselbrand do?
Griselbrand is a legendary creature demon. It costs 4 and 4 black and is a 7/7 with flying lifelink. And if you pay 7 life, you can draw 7 cards.
Yeah, it's a real bummer that he costs 8 mana.
I know, yeah. That's
7
the
mana,
biggest
7,
fumble
7,
from
7,
Mark Rosewater.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
Self-admitted fumble.
Whoops. Any rate, love Griselbrand. They should unban him. Yeah. I don't think they will, but they should because he's cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's very powerful, but
Villas is sort of the fixed replacement of Griselbrand, and he's not the same.
Yeah.
He's just not. He just doesn't cut it.
I will point out here, Wizards' reasoning for having Griselbrand be banned says cheating out a Griselbrand and drawing an absurd number of cards was an incredibly powerful thing to do during the 1 month window where it was legal. Insane that it was legal for 1 month and that they've just never tested it since. Yeah. Leading to quick action. Once in play, you tend to draw either 28 or 35 cards immediately, and the game often ends that turn. I can imagine a world in which Griselbrand returns for high bracket players to enjoy, but I would say it is more likely than not Griselbrand permanently remains on the banned list.
I feel like, again, this should be a situation where players get to decide how they want to customize their stuff, and Griselbrand should be on the menu, boys.
Yep. I agree. Next, this is probably a very divisive one. Hullbreacher.
Oh, yeah, this is a maybe.
Hullbreacher is 2 and a blue, a merfolk pirate that has 3 power and 2 toughness. It has flash. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead you create a treasure token.
Yeah, so the only reason why we ended up putting this on the maybe list is because an effect like this seems particularly good to counteract some of the Rhystic Study meta problems. A long time ago, put out a video about like the problems with Rhystic Study and the stalemate scenarios that it creates. And this could be some interesting counterplay to that kind of a meta. The problem is that it's also blue.
Right. It's not so much that this is on the maybe list because we actually think Hullbreacher should come back. I think it's more so that we think Wizards should probably explore this effect in other cases, in other instances.
Right. And also probably some way to sort of nerf drawing of cards while also making sure that it's not all that exploitable by wheels. Obviously, that's the problem here, is that you can play this and then wheel and then nobody draws cards. You make a bunch of treasures, you win the game. Yeah. But like, you win the game.
I mean, I love that type of an effect. It's very similar to like a Smothering Tithe, right? Someone ends up drawing a card, and that's when you draw a card, right? No, when someone else draws.
Yeah, Smothering Tithe's other people. Yeah. And like Notion Thief and stuff still exists in the format, but yeah, really, Hullbreacher was just here to mentioned that, something like this might be interesting.
Yeah. So Hullbreacher probably should still be banned.
Probably was going to stay banned. Yep.
Hopefully Wizards plays around with that effect. Next, this is the one that's going to be most hotly debated. Jeweled Lotus. Jeweled Lotus is a 0-cost artifact that if you tap it and sacrifice Jeweled Lotus, you add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander.
I actually do think that this is probably the most likely card to be unbanned of the 4 that were banned by the rules committee before Wizards of the Coast took over the format. This again comes back to that philosophy of you want to probably be thinking about the person who is falling behind in a 4-player game and how they might be able to catch back up. This is a good opportunity for that. It also opens the door to play commanders that are higher converted mana cost, where otherwise you might just choose one that's 2 or 3 mana. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits here in terms of giving players a tool to play higher up the mana curve for the commanders, which is interesting because it sounds like that was the reason why they banned it in the first place, was they were like, whoa, it's too good with 4 and 5 mana commanders. We got to ban this. And that's like, okay, well then nobody's going to play 4 and 5 mana commanders at those higher bracket levels. Make it a game changer. It should be fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I won't get into this.
This is also the only format that this card can exist in.
Yeah. So the only format that it exists in. And I think that what's funny is like, yes, it's technically stronger than a Lotus Petal in a way, but it's also not, right? In that, like,
depends on the deck, but yeah.
Right. But like the Lotus Petal can be used for anything. Jewel Lotus can only be used for your commander. So if you draw it too late in the game and you already have your commander out, you're kind of fucked.
Doesn't do
anything. So you want to draw it early and then you get your commander out early, but then you're like back on curve, right? So you got hopefully the thing that maybe is going to develop some sort of an engine with your commander, but then like you're right back to where everybody else is. So you did get a little bit of a boost, but that's not a permanent boost. It's not like an artifact that comes out, you drop it down and you tap it and you just always get 3 mana,
Right. Yep.
Next, we have Primeval Titan. Primeval Titan.
This is a spicy one.
4 and 2 green. It's a creature. That's a 6/6 with trample. And whenever Primeval Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for up to 2 land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library.
Primeval Titan's great. Okay. But and there's decks that want this card.
For sure.
I wanted to play this card. Right. Obviously, Amulet Titan, great deck. Has some play patterns that are a little problematic for people that don't really understand how to pilot the deck. But yeah, something like Lumra would love to have Primeval Titan. That might give it a little bit more viability. There's also just some other stuff that might want to play this, but I don't know. Generally speaking, I don't think that this would be that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's good. You get to look for any land card. It's very good. Is it like absolutely destroying the game? I don't think so. All right. So what do we think is going to happen?
If they unban anything, it will probably be stuff that just kind of doesn't make any sense to be on the list. Sure. And then they might unban Jeweled Lotus, but that's like a whole nother discussion probably. Yeah. But I think ideally the brackets, like a sort of litmus test for the brackets, should be that they facilitate that sort of Smash Bros-esque thing that we've talked about, where you can turn the items off and on to your liking and find players that also want to play with those certain things turned off and on.
Yeah, although a little bit different in that you're kind of turning items off in order to have more of a casual experience in a way. But yeah, similar.
Look, I think the way that you curate Commander is that you would make smaller formats out of it, right?
Sure.
Instead of it just being like, it's everything everywhere, anything you want to play.
Yeah. That's why I like the idea of Pauper Commander.
Sure.
Right. I've never played Pauper Commander.
You find other limiting factors that would fix some of this stuff. I think that's the way you handle it, rather than like, we're going to try to ban things to shape it to be the form we want it to be in. I don't think many of those like philosophical bans make a lot of sense. Power bans for power reasons, things that would break the game.
I think that's fine.
Obviously that's fine. Or, but generally speaking, I think we're on the side of like, open it up.
We had the same philosophy when they were talking about opening up hybrid mana, and that like people were freaking out because Kitchen Finks. And it's like, if you're going to freak out from Kitchen Finks, then of course people are going to freak out from Primeval Titan.
Oh yeah.
Right? I feel like people are so used to just the status quo and what they have, right? And so if suddenly you were to either take toys away or you're going to give them more toys, all of a sudden people are like, well, that's not what I'm used to. So they don't like it, right? They're getting these things in a way that they're not accustomed to getting them. But if it were to come out in a new set, that doesn't matter.
I do think, generally speaking, people like to get things rather than have them taken away.
For sure.
So,
and yet, they were trying to give players things with hybrid mana.
Good point.
If you enjoyed listening to us speculate about the ban announcement that's going to be coming February 9th, where we're going to have a follow-up video talking about the actual ban announcements, please feel free to give us a like and a subscribe, maybe a comment down below.
If you want to talk about the ban list, you can join our Discord. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.